Okay, we'll call the February 10th Apple Valley School Board meeting to order at 3 o'clock. And with that, we'll do roll call. Dennis Bender.
Here.
Christopher Nunez.
Present.
Maria Parra.
I'm here.
Wilson So is absent, and Rick is here. I'm here. All right, California Department of Public Health is requiring masks to be worn at all indoor public settings, irrespective of vaccine status, for 8 weeks, December 15th through February 15th. Apple Valley Unified School District will continue to follow facility mask entry guidelines. Dennis, will you lead us in the pledge?
Sure will. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right, moving right along. Item 4, public comments. Kylie, do we have any public comments?
We do have one.
Okay. Mr. Zachow, you're up.
All right, Zach. Lay it on us.
There is one.
We changed the policy to 30 seconds, so just for you.
That's not a problem. I'm very experienced with board policy and how to get waivers to them.
Just do what everybody else does. Just stay up there forever.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Nelson, Assistant Superintendents. I am Mr. Zachow. I am the Chief Negotiator for the Apple Valley Unified Teachers Association, also known as AVUTA. Tonight, I would like to provide you with the AVUTA Sunshine Negotiations Proposal for the 2022 to 2025 school years. Our strategy in creating this Sunshine document was twofold. Number one, to eliminate as much confusing, vague, and archaic language that is currently in the contract and replace it with clear and concise contract language. Number two, to update the financial position of all unit members that fall within our contract, and to ensure that in this time of the highest inflation, the inflation figures came out last week for January. The nation is currently at 7.5% national inflation as calculated by the Consumer Price Index. It is simply one factor that is an indicator among many economic factors, such as local inflation, state inflation, national producer product index. There are many different. But what this shows us is we are currently in the highest inflationary cycle since 1982. That is 40 years. Okay. Tonight we have provided each of you with a binder. If you would please go to your binder. If you open your binder up, you will see on the inside flap, there's an AVUTA negotiations team roster so that you know who all the negotiators are, who our secretary is, who our alternate negotiator is. And all of these people have done yeoman's work putting this Sunshine proposal together, and I thank them. If you go to the table of contents, you'll see Articles 1 through 13, and then flip it over. It should have Articles 14 through 20, I believe, and then on the last page, 21 through 23. Now, if you flip over to Article 1, the first page behind, if you'll notice, Article 1, you have type in red. AVUTA uses red to indicate new language or changed language. Okay, so anywhere where you see red, that is a new addition or a change. If you go over to Article 2, you'll see, at least in my copy, the word librarians is stricken out. We highlighted that there. I don't think we highlighted the rest of the contract, but we highlighted it there just so you could see anything that we've struck out, we believe is language that should be deleted. Okay, so those were the main considerations as you read. And if you look towards the back of your contract, you'll see a flap that says contract in it. We provided you a complete copy of the 2019 to 2022 contract. So as you look at our Sunshine, and when we did the Sunshine, we tried to put as much contextual language without actually copying the entire article over, but we tried to put context before and after everything. If you want, you can immediately go back to the original context, read the original language and see how our language and the context differs. So again, we've done this for the ease of everybody. So every board member, the superintendent, the assistant superintendents all got a copy. And I believe Kylie, was there a copy for you as the secretary? Okay, well, I thought we had one extra, but if we didn't, I'm sure. I appreciate your time on this. I look forward to having a very good negotiation cycle. AVUTA is going to negotiate in good faith like we always do. We have no preset concepts at this time. We will go in there and we will walk the walk, okay? And we will do what's necessary. And I'm hoping we could come to a satisfactory agreement on both sides. Many times in negotiations, and I've been a negotiator for nearly 30 years. I was also a negotiator in the Army. I used to negotiate Army contracts. Some of them were multi-million-dollar contracts. And I used to have a philosophy when I worked with vendors, because they thought the Army was just a piggy bank you give money to, or we give money to them, depending on. And I didn't agree with that. So I always told them negotiations is not the process of give and take. It's the process of give and give. Giving and taking rarely gets you anywhere. You become entrenched in positions. Each side needs to be willing to work with the other. And that's what I've always called give and give. Again, I've been negotiating for AVUTA since 2000, since year 2000. And therefore, we've had 7 contracts in that time period. In that time period, there's only one contract I did not directly write something in. So of the 7 last contracts, I was an author on 6 of them. So my historical and continuity knowledge on this goes back very, very deep. So again, if anyone ever has any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. And when the district does their sunshine next month, we're looking forward to getting started and getting it done. Thank you very much, board members, superintendents, assistant superintendents. Have a very good evening.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate it.
Is that it for public comments, Kylie?
That is.
Okay. Do we have any public comments pertaining to closed session? That was it?
Okay.
Okay. All right, we're going to be moving into closed session, but prior to that, I want to read sections 1 through 8, what we'll be discussing in closed session. Number 1, pupil personnel expulsion cases, EXP 152122 through EXP 162122. Item 2, Conference of Litigation Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection A. Current litigation, 6 cases, 1907-172, 2011-183, 2022-956, 2023-36, 21-03396, 211-303. Government Code Section 54954.5, subsection C and subsection D. 2. E, anticipated litigation, 5 cases, 2018, 1907, 2020, 2105, 2020, 2107, 2021, 2203, 2021, 2204. Government Code Section 54954.5, subsection D. Anticipated litigation, 1 case, Beverly Goss. Number 3, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reassignment, transfer, leave, titled certificated and classified employees. Item 4, public employees, appointments, resignations, retirement, reduction, titled certificated and classified employees. Item 5, conference with labor negotiator, agency negotiator Dustin Conrad. B, employee organization, Apple Valley Unified Teachers Association. 6, conference with labor negotiator, agency negotiator Dustin Conrad. B, employee organization, California School Employees Association. 7, conference with labor negotiator, agency negotiator Trinae Nelson. B, employee organization, unrepresented. Item 8, conference with real property negotiator, Government Code 54956.8. Negotiation parties, Matthew Schulenberg, Apple Valley Unified School District. We have a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Motion by Bender,
I second it.
second by Okpara. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, that'll be the order. Okay, so we're going to be back in closed session. We'll be back out by 4 PM. Okay. Okay, we'll call this meeting back to order at 4:13. And with that, we'll move on to item 2, reports student representatives. First up is Yucca Giovanni Sanchez, Ruben Garza, and Mary Duran, and Marley Montero.
So I'll be playing these. They'll be on both screens.
Okay,
So
great.
here we go. Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's an
Yeah.
improvement.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Superintendent and members of the public. I am Giovanni Sanchez, Yucca Student Council President. And I am Ruben Garza, Yucca Student Council Vice President. My name is Mary Duran, Yucca Student Council Secretary. My name is Marley Montero, and I am Yucca Student Council Treasurer. We would like to start by saying how excited we are to be back at school. We miss being with our friends and teachers. We are excited to share with you the great things happening at Yucca. Our pond project is almost complete with an updated pump and a redesign that allows us to use the water from the pond to water our Loma garden and vegetable towers. Vivid Water Solutions donated the manpower and installation, and Liberty Utilities funded the equipment. We are hoping to have the pond project complete by May of this year. A pond area is a place for kids to go and explore with their teacher. You go there to relax, read, do nature drawing, or even have lunch with your teacher. We can't wait for it to be up and running. Speaking of up and running, our makerspace rooms are in full force, and teachers bring their classes in during their scheduled time. 4th through 6th are learning about circuits, and some classes have started using CircuitCAD. During December, we had the Great Elf launch, where we took Mr. Clark's face and put it on an elf that was tied to a beanbag and launched with a catapult. Fell in the makerspace room. It was really fun, and all of Frog Town was out to see it. We are looking forward to the weather getting warmer as we have more equipment and activities to do outside during recess. And even sometimes of the new equipment, we have frisbee golf, badminton, volleyball, and volleyball. Students are working hard in class and trying their best to stay in school. Our band teacher, Mr. Lopez, had his first Yucca concert in December after school. Parents were excited and proud of the band and to show support for the band players. Many of our students came to the school to watch the concert. We look forward to the spring concert in May. We can go on and on about how great our school is. It is better to see in person, so you are all welcome to visit anytime. Thank you for your time and attendance, and most importantly, make it a great day or not, the choice is yours.
All right, thank you, Yucca. Now we'll move on to Mariana Academy, Serene Hale, and Manny Mejia. Will be on the screen.
Good evening, Ms. Nelson, members of the board, faculty, family, and guests. My name is Shannon Hale, and I'm an 8th grade student at Mariana Academy.
Hello, my name is Manny Mejia. I'm a 7th grade student at Mariana Academy.
We are here this evening to share some of the exciting things that happened so far during the 2021 through 2023 school year, and to provide a glimpse into the months ahead at Mariana Academy. Our calendar is packed with learning inside and outside of the classroom.
Let's flash back to August and September of 2021. The start of school was particularly exciting with a return to in-person learning for all grades. It was great to see old friends and make new ones as we kicked off the 2021 to 2022 year.
There were a few construction projects underway as students returned to the Mariana campus. Our parking lots, bus circle, and a portion of our playground were temporarily closed off, as new parking lots and a new improved playground with full-size basketball courts were built. But construction did not interfere with our excitement about being back in school. We found many ways to enjoy the remaining space on our beautiful grass-filled campus, such as weekly games of gaga ball, using pop-up volleyball and soccer nets, just taking time to read under one of our many beautiful trees.
October was an especially exciting month for our 4th grade students as they had the chance to take a field trip to the Hypervalley Center for Innovation. The students loved the hands-on STEM activities and exploring the exhibits with the help of several middle school student guides. It was also a great month for parents and staff as the parking lot and bus cycle construction was completed and open for use.
November, December kept us busy learning and celebrating the holidays and the opening of our new basketball courts and playground. Also in December, our kindergarten and second grade students had a turn to take field trips to the Apple Valley Center for Innovation. It was great to hear them talk about all the exciting things they learned.
January 2022 included the 100th Day of School and the Great Kindness Week, challenges full of fun activities and participation school-wide. It's hard to believe we are already in midway through February and looking ahead to our final months of the 2021 to 2022 year.
February and March, our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade classes will be busy preparing for and participating in their walk-through history events. These days are always enjoyed by everyone as students role play events from California history, the American Revolution, and ancient Egypt.
April and May will be here before long, and we will be busy with state testing and hosting the Family Night Show off our newly renovated grounds. Even more exciting will be the celebration of our 8th grade students as they finish their time with us in May and will be moving on to high school.
Though we always look forward to summer, looking back at the past year does make us excited to see what will be coming next year. This has truly been an amazing year that we are proud to share a glimpse of with you.
All right. Thank you, Marine Academy. Up next, Granite Hills High School, and that'll be Ella Hausman will be on the screen.
Members, Superintendent Nelson, and attendees, my name is Ella Hausman, your 2021-2022 Granite Hills GC President. We're more than halfway through the school year, and I'm excited to be graduating, but even more excited for our senior grad night and prom, as well as our senior pep rally tomorrow with our prom reveal. The update on campus. Our winter formal ticket sold out this year and was another huge success like our previous years. In honor of Black History Month, we added a part of Black history in a part of the announcements, as well as food that will be made by students and served next week. A big thank you to Ms. Mosley and Ms. McDuffie and our BSU club. Another big focus this month as well is kindness and teacher appreciation. In light of this, ASB students made teacher thank you letters to their favorite teachers. Avid hosted a college career fair yesterday. The Avid students created college posters that were presented. A lot of creativity was applied and a lot of reps came from careers and colleges. Something that I noticed around campus is that our counselors are super on top of it, making sure that all our students are attending college have applied to FAFSA and have a plan. They as well are calling students in for second grad checks. Furthermore, our Mighty Cougars, boys soccer are second in league and start their playoffs this Friday and are ranked 6th in their division. Our fearsome girls soccer team are out of control, being their 4th year in a row winning first in their league and now ranked number 1 in their division. The second round CIF game is this Saturday at 5 p.m. Boys basketball finished off the season 11-8. Girls basketball ended 6-12, and we are looking forward to the next year. Water polo finished their season 5-8 after 2 years out of the water. We have 8 individual wrestlers going to CIF. Overall, they are second in league. Thank you all for your time this evening, and always remember, maroon and gray leads the way.
Thank you, Ella. Moving on to Apple Valley High, we'll see Daniel Oriana on the screen.
First, it is my pleasure to bring you news from Apple Valley High School. These are the events from January. To start with the school sports, our boys basketball team has won their games against Serrano and Sultana, with their last game against Burroughs tomorrow. The girls soccer team has won their matches against Burroughs, Sultana, and Hesperia, and both will start the tryouts this month. As for clubs, the choirs held their dessert theater January 23rd to the delight of new parents. Our Sun Devils Actors Guild is having auditions for the spring musical Sun Devils on Broadway. Sensations is preparing for the Valentine's recital on February 11th. A new club has joined our school, the Meditation Club. Key Club is planning a book drive and animal shelter supply drive. Students are excited for the winter program dance this Saturday. I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to updating you in the months ahead. And remember, Sunday Prides continues.
Thank you, Daniel. Moving all right along here, item 3 will be California School Employees Association presentation, CSEA. Are they here?
I have not seen them.
Okay. Avuda?
I do not believe there's a representative from AVUSD as
Okay.
well.
Moving right along, closed session reports. The clerk of the board will report on any action taken in closed session. Prior to that, I'm going to read, we did an amended case on EXP, expulsion case 16-2122.
That can actually come a little bit later.
Oh, that doesn't come
Yeah.
during closed session reporting? Okay.
Correct.
Public
Oh,
employee,
okay.
discipline, dismissal, release, reassignment, transfer, certificated and classified employees. On a motion by Maria, seconded by Nunez, the Board of Trustees approve the following. Approve the non-reelection of the following certificated probationary employees identified by number only, effective June 30, 2022, and direct that the superintendent or her designee give written notice thereof as required by law. Number 8055, number 9695, number 7182, number 3007, number 1097, number 6109, number 2512, number 0074, number 8941, number 7406, number 5641, number 6904. And that was a 4-0 vote. Also in closed session, took the recommendation of the superintendent on a conference of litigation on a motion by Maria, seconded by Rick. The board voted unanimously to deny the claim of Beverly Goss on a 4-0 vote. Conference with the labor negotiator, motion by Maria, second by Chris. Approve the amended memorandum of understanding with the California School Employees CSEA, chapter number 828, January 25th, 2022, regarding COVID-19 extended supplemental pay sick leave. It was passed on 4-0. Conference with the labor negotiator on a motion by Maria, seconded by Rick. The Board of Trustees approve the following. Approve the memorandum of understanding with the California School Employees Association, number 828, dated January 25th, 2022, regarding Juneteenth on a 4-0 vote. And finally, the last one. Conference with labor negotiator on a motion by Chris, and seconded by Maria. The Board of Trustees approves the following. Approve the memorandum of understanding with the California School Employees, CSAE, number 828, January 25th, 2022, regarding an increase in prescribed work hours. The vote was 5-4-0.
All right, thank you, Dennis. Okay, so item 5, we need adoption of the agenda. The board may approve the agenda as is or add or pull items from the consent agenda for discussion of the action. We need approval of the agenda as is. Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the agenda as is.
Okay, motion by Opara,
Second?
second by Nunez. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, that'll be the order. Discussion, information, facilities, and improvement. Wait a minute. Yeah,
That's it.
that's it. Financing operations is by Matthew Schulenberg, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley. On a board member's request a couple meetings ago, I was requested to run through some brief information about facilities and some possible improvements and also some possible financing options. First off, I'll start with, I call it the elephant in the district. We now own 40 acres of land adjacent to Granite Hills High School. So many individuals have asked what comes next. That land was purchased partly with the intent to eventually build an athletic stadium on that facility. So I would like to point out to the board, there are some considerations as we look at this particular project. Mainly that's 40 plus or minus acres. So a stadium with some lit athletic fields, what type of surface, natural or artificial athletic surface. Seating for 5,000, and I will admit 5,000 is just a number I picked. Could be more, could be less in the final plans or any conceptual athletic facilities we put together. Is there a desire to do track for track and field? Is there a desire to have a natural track as there is at Newt Bass Stadium, or is there a desire to have an artificial surface track? With some new athletic facilities at Granite, there's always the consideration of renovating the existing athletic facilities. And I would also like to point out that a 40-acre space, a stadium such as Newt Bass or a typical athletic stadium and appropriate parking will not take up all 40 acres. So are we going to build in phases? Are we going to do it all at once? Just things to consider as we look down this path. Is a field house a part of this? A field house typically contains locker rooms for both visiting and home teams. Is that a desire to have a facility like that? Snack bar and restroom facilities for the spectators, of course, something to consider. Restrooms, of course, is, I think, pretty mandatory, but a snack bar. And, of course, sufficient parking for any of those facilities. So this is just a very high altitude overview of some of the possibilities related to that 40 acres adjacent to Granite Hills High School. Some of our other facilities and things throughout the district, one thing we have to take into consideration, Governor Newsom has basically created another grade in the K through 12 system, transitional kindergarten. It currently serves those students born between turn 5 between September 2nd and December 2nd of the current school year. And he has proposed a multi-year phase in, and it's not proposed, it's actually law now. But in looking at our transitional kindergarten, pre-pandemic, we've historically had about 200 transitional kindergartners in our system and about 1,000 kindergartners. And now that is all pre-pandemic. Right now, we actually have, you'll see there in the 21-22 school year, we enroll children between September 2nd and December 2nd. Our enrollment is 164, a little light. But looking forward into the 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26 school years, I used the 1,000 as a target. If we actually have consistently had 1,000 kindergartners, I believe we have the potential for 1,000 transitional kindergartners upon full implementation. So in next school year, the enrollment window expands by 2 months. So we will enroll those children that turn 5 between September 2nd and December 2nd in this transitional kindergarten program. So that's 5 out of 12 months. So I'm the numbers guy, so I do some math, take a fraction and multiply it. I got a potential enrollment of 415 kids for next year in our transitional kindergarten program. Keeping in mind that transitional kindergarten is not compulsory. It's not required. It's a grade level, much like kindergarten, that we will offer that parents can choose to enroll their children in. Will we get 415 transitional kindergartners next year? Probably not, but that's a target. In the 24 school year, again, it expands another 2 months to April 2nd, so 7 months. So possibly up to 580 transitional kindergartners. In the 25 school year, it expands another 2 months to June 2nd, so possibly 750 transitional kindergartners. And in the fall of 25, for the 25-26 school year, we will be able to enroll all children that turn 5 during that school year from September 2nd to the following September 1st. So it basically has created another full grade level in the 25-26 school year. So our projected enrollment is possibly 1,000 transitional kindergartners. Classroom loading for transitional kindergarten is unique. In the first year, next year, it's actually a 24-1, but it's 12-1 student to adult. So we have to have 2 adults in every transitional kindergarten classroom with up to 24 kids. In the second year, in 23-24, that actually drops to 20-1 in the class. 20-2 or 10-1 if funding is provided by the state of California. And all signs point to funding will be provided by the state of California for this grade program. So there is a potential need over the next several years that we may need approximately 40 to 45 additional transitional kindergarten classrooms across our 10 elementary school sites, our K6s and our K8s. Other things to consider, other district athletic facilities. We have a start time legislation that we're dealing with right now in our high schools, and according to this current legislation, cannot start before 8:30 beginning July 1, 2022. So that is as early as next school year. Practices may go later. We're looking at those ancillary athletic facilities. And I say ancillary because it's athletics that can't necessarily happen in a stadium like Newt Bass. So we have to consider what we have available at our schools, what we don't have available, and are there other needs in our athletic facilities? And other things we need to take into consideration, we have some older school sites, Yucca being the oldest, Mariana, Desert Knolls, and Rancho Verde. They've been around for a while. I think we've got people in the district that have been students there that or have taught there, that have taught kids. Now they're teaching their kids or their grandkids at some of these schools. So we have a lot of history. We have a lot of great people at these schools, but our facilities are aging. So that's just some general high altitude discussion about facilities things we need to take into consideration. The next thing we need to take into consideration, that's the big question, how do we pay for it? Typically in California, school districts utilize what's called a general obligation bond. Apple Valley Unified has a general obligation bond, currently Measure S, from the spring of 2003. Voters did approve a bond for us. Monies from that bond paid for some projects throughout the district, particularly the construction of Sitting Bull Elementary and Sitting Bull Middle School. Now, this is considered voter-approved debt because it has to go to the voters. Under Prop 39, in order to pass a general obligation bond, we need a 55% plus one approval rating on that particular bond. This particular Prop 39, it does levy levy an ad valorem tax on your property tax bill, and many the residents in Apple Valley right now currently have that. You'll see that Apple Valley Unified Property Tax Assessment for our Measure S. This would it's limited up to 60 per 100,000 of assessed value based on Prop 39. And we are not able to exclude any property owners from a general obligation bond. Typical uses for GO bonds, of course, are facility improvements, athletic, academic facilities, or to discharge existing COP debt service. And as the board knows, we did a recent COP, so we currently do have some COP debt service. Another financing option that we could consider is something called a parcel tax. This is also voter-approved debt. A parcel tax requires 2/3, almost 67% of the voters to say yes. It levies a tax on parcels, not based on assessed value, just based on each parcel. Typically, it's a flat dollar amount on parcels. Exclusions are allowed under a parcel tax. For instance, the most common exclusion you see districts build into a parcel tax are senior citizens, or those individuals more typically living on a fixed income. Typical uses for parcel tax, however, are not typically facilities. They are more for operational costs because parcel tax tend to be more short-term issuances. They have an expiration date. Many districts will do them for 5 years or 7 years or possibly 10 years. And then they will have to go back to the voters for additional parcel taxes if they so choose to do that. Another financing option you're familiar with is a certificate of participation, or a COP. That is non-voter approved debt. The debt burden, the debt service does not fall on the voters on their property tax bill. The debt service is totally the responsibility of the district. Those are issued at the direction of the local school board against a known revenue stream. Recently, we did issue a certificate of participation in the amount of a little over $14 million to pay for some local projects. And we issued that COP against our redevelopment agency revenue stream that we get every year. Now, this is just a hypothetical on this particular slide in terms of a certificate of participation. We have a revenue stream, the redevelopment agency revenue stream, and we did not borrow against that entire revenue stream. We were conservative in our borrowing, and we still have some space on that particular revenue stream. So I asked our financial advisor just to put together a little scenario if we were to issue a certificate of participation for, and I chose $20 million, just as an example for the board. If we were to issue a $20 million certificate of participation on a 30-year debt service, the debt service would be approximately $1.2 million per year over 30 years. It's essentially a mortgage. About $700,000 per year, the remaining RDA revenue stream would be able to cover of that $1.2 million on average a year, which would mean our unrestricted general fund would have to make up the remaining $500,000 on average during each of the 30-year debt service for a COP. And that's at $20 million. I could get different scenarios, but as you borrow more, our RDA revenue stream is only going to be able to cover so much of that debt service. So it would be an impact on our unrestricted general fund. Just some other local funding sources. Our RDA that is not used for debt services is deposited into Fund 40, our special reserve for capital outlay. We do have about $3 million in there. And then we have some remaining COP proceeds that it's also deposited in Fund 40 to the tune of about $4.5 million of that $14 million we recently issued. Other options, of course, there's state monies. I apologize for all the abbreviations on that first line, but that's Universal Pre-Kindergarten, Universal Transitional Kindergarten, and the Kindergarten Facility Grant. Governor Brown recently offered another $490 million across the state of California on this particular grant. They had $100 million 3 years ago, and that $100 million on this particular facility grant paid for 47 projects throughout the state of California. No matching funds are required, but an application is of course required for this particular grant. There are state bond monies. There are two pieces of legislation right now, both proposing facility bonds at the state level. That would be the state of California selling general obligation bonds and making that money accessible to school districts on an application basis for facilities projects. A matching fund requirement is typically required with state bond monies. And what most districts do in order to access state bond monies, they have a local general obligation bond. For instance, if we were to take a local general obligation bond to the voters in Apple Valley Unified and say, I'm just going to pick an amount, $50 million. And we had several projects within that $50 million GO bond. And of course, our projects are going to cost more than $50 million. We apply for state matching funds to match our 50. Then we have 100 to do projects throughout Apple Valley Unified. In theory, that's not always actually what happens with school districts. And many times you'll wait many years on a list at the state level to be funded for projects, but that is a resource for us. Thank you. Any questions?
I do.
Chris, go ahead and open it up for discussion here.
I was just wondering, how much can the UPK, UTK, and the kindergarten facility grant, how much can those be up to?
There's no set amount. We can apply for as much as we'd like. And I'm learning this. I did attend a Office of Public School Construction webinar last week where they went through this process. What we're faced with is if, for instance, if we have a small project at each of our 10 elementary schools, that is 10 separate applications to the state for funding under this grant program. The Office of Public School Construction will typically go through their preference list after they score these applications, and they'll make sure every district has at least one project. And then they'll go through the list again and make sure they can get maybe a second project at every district. And I'm sure they're going to run out of money long before they get to a second project in most districts across the state of California. So as I mentioned earlier, $100 million a couple years ago paid for 47 projects. There are 1,000 school districts in the state of California, many with facilities issues much like ours. They don't have room for another grade level.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a question.
Maria.
I'm going back to the facilities. Thank you so much for letting us know that we finally have the property to put a stadium at Granite Hills High School. It's about time. But the question that I have is, when you consider the track, the natural and all-weather surface, what will be the difference in cost? That will be one question. And if you should put an all-weather surface at Granite Hills, will you be required to put one for Apple Valley High School so that they will be comparable to each other? So that's my one question, and I'll come back for the second one.
The first part of your question, the cost difference between a natural surface track and an all-weather track, I'm not prepared to get that detailed in numbers in terms of cost. So I could do some research and get back to you on that particular answer. In terms of an all-weather football field, if one is installed at Granite Hills High School as part of a new project, we would not be required by anybody to install anything at Newton Bass Stadium. we would not be required to.
Then the next question is, if you should have the, if you should have the funds to pay for the stadium, to get it going, to set it up, are you open to selling seats or plaques so that you can recoup some of the money to continue to expand on that property?
Well, I believe when Newt Bass was built, there were donations where individuals purchased certain seats for a donation. That actually would be something if the board has the desire to do something like that in the future, I think that would be up to the board. Or if the board wanted to give the school the ability to do that as a fundraiser for maybe their associated student body. With the cost of building a stadium, I don't believe selling seats would really gather enough revenue to do any meaningful expansion or additional construction. I would recommend, if asked today, that I would probably steer that toward ASB to support student activities and student programs on campus rather than build facilities with additional donations.
And my final question, Mr. President, do I have permission to go further?
Sure.
My final question has to do with the TK and the additional classrooms.
Yes.
I do know because I came from the district. I'm a product of this district, so I do know how all of that plays out. That if you put classrooms, you're going to put personnel. So the classrooms are not going to sit all by itself. There will be personnel that will be inside that classroom. Where is the funding going to come from to cover the cost of personnel and their benefits? Because they are not going to be part-timers. The kids are going to be there for most of the day, so they won't be part-timers, and there'll be benefits. Is that going to come from this grant money that we're going to apply for? And how long will that grant money go for? Because as we all know, when you file for a grant, there's a time limit. There's a space where you have to use it. And what happens to continue to have the personnel to be covered outside of the grant?
Well, the grant money is solely for construction of facilities or modernization of existing facilities. The grant money is not for any staff whatsoever.
Okay, thank you.
The money for staff would come from the ADA generated by the enrollment of the transitional kindergarten students, much like our funding under the local control funding formula comes based on the ADA of the students attending our schools currently. Governor Newsom has pledged a several billion-dollar augmentation to the Prop 98 base funding for districts across California in light of his recognition of the increased staffing to facilitate the expansion of transitional kindergarten.
Okay, so the governor gives us says he's pledged, because we hear about the pledge. They pledge, and are they going to ask us to spend first and then come back and ask? Or are they going to give us the money up front so that we can get on with the business of educating kids? My understanding in most instances is the government makes a pledge, they tell us what we need to do, and we go ahead and do it, and then we go back and grovel to beg them to give us money to pay for what they've already told us to do. So I'm curious about how is the government going to do this? Are we going to front load them and say, we're going to have 400 students, then give us the funds, and if we didn't finish the funds, we'll give it back to you, but don't hold us hostage as we are waiting for this money to come, because districts still need to run.
Absolutely. As I mentioned, this will be part of our local control funding formula. So these students attending school will be part of our average daily attendance, which is calculated, projected at the beginning of the year when we do our LCFF calculation based on our budget. So as the state apportions the money to us throughout the year, we are basically getting it. It's not up front, it's not after the fact, it's pretty much when we need it on a monthly basis when the state apportions the cash.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is just the first step. If we're going to move forward with any of these that have been proposed, this board's going to need to make some decisions. So this is the first good step, just discussing it, finding out the minute details will be later on. But thank you, Matt, for the information. So we don't want that land just to sit there and
No.
collect dust. So definitely going to do something. All right, moving on to presentation 2, local control accountability LCAP supplement, and Patrick Schlosser.
Thank you. This is a report that is a little bit of background for this. The budget trailer bill this year, AB 130, required an update to the board, an overview of the budget, changes to the budget, which you'll see in a moment, and a supplement for the annual update to the LCAP because there were increased concentration grant funds that came to us after LCAP was adopted in June. And so I've got a very abbreviated version of the lengthy report that you have in front of you that is also posted to the website because it's quite lengthy and the statute required an exhaustive amount of information to be presented. But I'm going to hit some of the highlights here and summarize. And so generally the impact of the budget to those funds that are part of what Matt mentioned, the local control funding formula that comes to us as both sort of general funds overall. Our increased allocation went from 143 million. Our estimate now is about 153. And the great majority of that came in additional supplemental and concentration grant funds. You'll remember that those funds must be expended for those students who generate those funds: English learners, foster youth, and students of poverty. And so our LCAP, originally written, was targeted at that first dollar amount. And now we've made some adjustments. In summary, I want you to know that the LCAP supplement that was part of this board item that must be turned into the state, once it doesn't require board approval, it will come to you for full approval as part of the LCAP in June again. But it does ask some questions about engagement. Know that in Apple Valley, we are always in an LCAP cycle. So we met with our community partners on January 25th. We'll meet again in March. We've met with student groups. We've conducted surveys. All that information continues to inform these decisions. The additional funds must be used in accordance with the current LCAP, and they are. The other thing the funds must be used for, the increased concentration grant funds, is they must be used for personnel at school sites. And so that's in order to support students. When we met in January, we were told it must be used at school sites that are greater than 55% of the unduplicated pupil count of English learners, foster youth, and students of poverty. At that time, we believed there were 12 of our 13 schools that qualified. Subsequent to that presentation, we've confirmed with CalPads, our data administrator, that now all of our schools qualify, which makes this plan much easier to write. So the plan that you had, days, really moments after it was posted to the public website and posted for you, and we do have the ability to amend this plan ongoing. We are able to amend it so now to include Sitting Bull, which is just great because it means all the things that we're doing, we can do across the system. And it also required an update on our Sr3 projects. Those were federal, one-time federal coronavirus relief dollars. A quick update on that is, again, there's a lengthy update for you in the report. But things like the HVAC upgrades and some of the other large facility upgrades, those projects are just getting started. They went through a lengthy process of gathering information, contract building, bids and vendors applying for those bids, and then finally an awarding process. And so those actually are going to get started in some of their preliminary phases this month. So there's not a lot of report on some of the big projects because they just take some time to get rolling. Remember, this is we have many years to spend this. We have until, for some of these ESSER funds, I believe, to the end of 23, 24 at least. Thank you. Some of the short-term things we did are working. Use the ESSER funds to increase the number of substitutes available, to add to our ability to provide COVID-19 testing to get students and staff back to work quickly. And so some of those things that we put into the plan, we were able to do immediately, and they were used to great effect. In general, the kinds of things that the community came up with for students at the school sites they really mentioned the need for increased help in behavior management of students. So we're going to add to the proctors, campus security, some technicians along that area. That takes time. They're constantly recruiting and bringing in folks for those positions, but that we can now use this funding to add to those positions. at school sites, all school sites. An additional counseling staff position, at least one. We can use this funding to pay for the increase in the registered nurses assigned to sites by 7 more. Adding custodial support at every site. And then at High Desert Premier Academy, the addition of a therapist, much like what we did at Apple Valley High School and Granite Hills High School. Some of the metrics that are presented to you, I just want to make sure you understand that we are in a strange data position. Some things we have data for, grad rate, A through G completion, et cetera. And again, if you're following along this, I'm going to skip some slides. Some things are in progress. We know some of what's going as far as the data. We can see, for example, what the suspension rate is as of today, but we don't know what the annual rate will be for this year yet. Finally, some of the data we just don't have yet. The state has not given us the manner in which they're going to calculate things like chronic absenteeism. So grad rates over time. A quick snapshot at this. Just wanted you to see what was presented to the District Advisory Committee. And just kind of looking over time, that far right bar for these different student groups in orange represents last year's class of 2021. Grad rate, slight decline overall with some volatility among some of the subgroups. A noticeable decline in foster youth last year. That group, remember, as far as the number of seniors is very small. So even 4 or 5 students not graduating and leaving us because of either their placement or something changed with their lives, they count for us as a non-grad. And so we lost students last year that we were just unable to find in the system. So that was a decline for us. Notice the English learner grad rate or graduation rate up and nearly equal with all students. A through G completion is another metric that's in our LCAP. It's an important one to watch. Our all student rate did go down slightly for last year's senior class. And again, some volatility and drop in the foster youth rate. And so this is something that there's actually an A through G improvement grant coming. The template's not yet been posted, but we will have an allocation to be working to get students over this bar by finding out what is the barrier. Seniors who pass 2 AP exams, another thing to watch. So for us, the number of students is low for number of students taking and passing an AP exam anytime during their high school experience. This is looking at last year's seniors against this year before and the year before that. And again, the English learners, for example, we typically have students who take and pass the Spanish language AP exam and do quite well. But last year was difficult to get students motivated to take these exams. Cte Pathway Completion, this one's interesting. This is not commonly an area where we see decline. We've had great growth in this area. But again, with last year being sort of a different year enrollment-wise, student choices were mitigated by the fact that they weren't coming to school in person to do some of these hands-on CTE classes until pretty late in the school year. And so the completers is down to just 28%. Suspension rates. This is a moment in time at the end of last semester. Just kind of looking overall, I looked at the 18-19 rate because 19-20, even though it says 4.7%, it's a little bit of a misnomer because remember 19-20 was abbreviated. There was no students suspended after March 13th, not 2020. And so the year to date right now is that 3.3% of our students have experienced at least 1 day of suspension. That's at the middle of the year. I can't tell you if that means 6.6% by the end of the year, but we can assume it will rise. And so on for the other subgroups. Of course, stakeholder surveys went out. We saw great participation from students. So almost 8,000 students participated in the Youth Truth Survey. More families participated this year as well, and staff participation was good. So we have some data there that I'll briefly look at, but it is exhaustive. And we'll be going through this data, and principals all have it for their sites. In general, our findings are this. This is a difficult year for students. This is a difficult year for everyone, and that shows in the data. The general well-being and connection to schools is down. I spent some time with the Youth Truth Survey organization to get a sense of where we landed with other schools, because at first it looked as though we were an outlier, that this data was low for us, but not as low in other places in California. What she told me is that the California aggregate data is for a 10-year average. made a total difference in the way we read this. And we'll see some overall trends in a moment. We're going to look at engagement, the overarching area of engagement. They're asked several sub-questions for students. They're asked certain questions about their connection to school or their engagement with school. Families were asked questions about that, as were staff. Here's how you look at this chart, just briefly. Elementary school students, 90% of them said they were engaged, and that was up actually a little bit from when they answered this question in April. However, for us, that's still low when you compare against that 10-year aggregate. Elementary school students are usually engaged, and ours reported slightly lower than the state average. Families feel a low sense of engagement, and it's down from April, which is interesting because in April they were not in school full-time. It was a hybrid model, remember? And now they're in school full-time, but the engagement is reported as lower. And staff, although in the blue, it's more positive. It's in the higher quartile, slightly down. So you can kind of see how these report out. None of this is surprising in the sense where we had lots of absences. We had students quarantined or isolated, staff quarantined or isolated. This was taken in November. High school data, you'll see, has no comparative because high school did not participate last year. For relationships, students, families, and staff asked several questions around the area of relationships. Again, all of this reported to the DAC. Those folks who are here are part of the DAC have seen this already. Also, although at first the numbers look good, high percentage of positive responses to relationship, it's still low and declining. It's very alarming to feel like a sense of that there isn't a strong relationship or a sense of a strong relationship at school. It's not surprising that it decreases across the grade levels. That's nationally common. We saw that in the Gallup poll data, if you remember that. Here's what's looking like across the country, though. Youth Truth kind of took a look at this. They don't have fall data to add to this chart yet, but they saw it peak early in the pandemic, and it's falling everywhere. All relationship measures are declining, and it's of incredible import. That's why the push to have more folks at school. That's why the positions being added are things like therapists and counselors and folks that can be there for students. And of course, being there consistently will help a ton. Finally, a quick look at our English learner data. This is a lot of numbers. I'm going to just summarize and say this. On the left is San Bernardino County and the percentages of the various LPAC levels. On the right is Apple Valley Unified. And essentially for us, we are beating the county. Our students are outperforming. Our English learners are growing quickly. They're redesignating as English proficient, and they're exiting the program. We found 54 students last year who qualified, even though they did not publish clear criteria because we had no test results. This year, we have 146 students of about 1,200 who look like they're on track to redesignate. So that's just a quick snapshot of the data. The full data report is there for you for all metrics. So in closing, this has been tough. I acknowledge, and I'll tell you that the slide, this is a template plan. You know this, this process has been difficult. But the plan you have to use those concentration grant funds is in keeping with the LCAP as it's been requested by our community. And we have the ability to adjust that going forward because these are ongoing funds. These are not one-time funds. And I'll pause there for questions.
Pat, I got a question. Why do you think that the students in Apple Valley feel less safe in schools than the state average?
I think that state average for 10 years, I think if we were comparing ourselves to that even in April, we beat it like crazy. But since it's an aggregate number, I don't think it's actually a good comparison for us this year. What I want to do is when we start to see this data and get a comparison to other schools this year, I'll bring that back. Because I don't think we can say that with confidence. We can say that students are feeling less connected or less engaged than students over a 10-year average. But that 10 years includes years prior to this that were quite different. Even our students in April, we scored in the top 63 to 69, depending on the measure, % of all schools in the state in April. We declined. And what I'm hearing from the survey folks is all schools are showing the same decline this fall. As soon as I get some better data that's comparative, I'll bring it back.
Yeah. And then the issue with teachers discussing home life, if a student has an issue at home, I saw the chart had dropped that the teachers aren't as engaged anymore with discussing problems. Is that because maybe they're a little bit gun shy that to even engage discussing things because of accusations, or do you see any correlation to that?
I don't. I think the correlation seems to be more along the lines of it takes time, consistency, and presence to build those relationships. And it's one thing that our system hasn't had the benefit of in the same way that normally in a school year it has. You follow? Like the classes day to day shift, really until this week, they shift momentously. And the teachers even being out because of either quarantine or isolation.
Okay.
So I think that's a factor that we have to consider.
Great, thank you. Is there any other questions?
Yes, of course, you know, I would ask.
I would have been disappointed if I didn't get any.
Okay, my question, I have quite a few, so I'm going to go to the charts because you know me, I'm a numbers, I follow the numbers. When you go to the charts on graduation rates, it shows quite a few ethnic groups were making some growth. They had some growth, but there were some that didn't make the kind of growth that we will expect them to have. So the question that I have is how aggressive are we as a district to go after those groups of students who have actually checked out, to find ways to get them back in, to engage them back into the educational process? Because just having, I'm going to take an example, when you look at the foster youth, they made such growth in 2020. But when it came to 2021, they dropped drastically.
They did.
For the A to G graduation rate. And so that is a challenge because there are children out there. I don't like to look at numbers. I look at numbers and apply it to people. So when you say 20%, you are saying that 20% of real breathing human beings are the people you have been able to capture. So the question is, what did you do with the 80%? Because to get a whole 100%, there's a 80% missing somewhere. And we need to be able to hunt those 80% and bring them back into the fold.
Yeah.
So that they may graduate. So we have a lot of students who are now graduating based on the numbers that I'm looking at here. And I'm just curious about, did we drop the ball? Or did we just say, okay, when they return, we will help them? But then they're aging out. They will reach the age of 18, and we won't chase them after that. We need to be able to find ways to bring those kids in so that we will be at least at the 90-something percentile. So that's my first question. I'll come for another one.
We need to find a second parent in the home to help those people.
Ms. Opara, I think the question is how aggressive. And
Yeah.
so I can characterize that by what happened this week, for example. We had some administrators who were kind of substitute administrators now freed from being at school sites this week who made 35 home visits, knocking on doors, checking in with families, finding out what the barrier to connecting to school was. So it's that kind of outreach I think they're going to have to do. Because think about this, the class of 2021, if they were not on track for a 230 unit diploma, regular board required diploma, AB 104 allowed them to have a 130 unit option. Any student we could find and wrap our arms around, we made a graduate. Anyone who's not on this chart is because we couldn't find them. We're looking. And the foster youth, as you know, change placement. They'll leave the county and we won't know. And so that's what's going on with the foster numbers.
Okay. Next question, A to G completion. We all know that A to G is the pathway to go into a Cal State or CSU system, educational system. when you have students who are not meeting the A to G requirement, we are also saying they are not going to be able to go to a California State University or University of California system. And I'm just wondering if we let them not think about that because there's a Victor Valley College here, or if we push them to say, that option is there. Let's help you, even if it means helping you with getting a scholarship to go. So I'm looking at the numbers, and the numbers are just not adding up, and I'm struggling with it. So tell me why we are not able to get the number of students to be able to attempt the A to G and complete them. I have two questions on that. Do you have teachers who are equipped to get those children to that level of passing the A to G? Or do you have students who have checked out and refused to go through the A to G process? Have they been given the tools that they need with a counselor? When the counselor sees the child, is the counselor saying, you know what, I think you can do the A to G. I'm ready to hold your hand as we go. Or is it just go on and let's see where it falls? So that's my challenge.
I'll take that in three parts.
Okay, take
Okay.
as many parts as
Okay.
you want.
Are the teachers equipped? We focus on A to G and we look at the class of 21 and we think of that as a kind of a measure of what they did as seniors. But you know as well as anyone in the system, it's a multi-year project.
Correct.
One grade of D, freshman English, D in freshman English that doesn't get repaired or retaken means they're done, they're out. That's just an example class, could be any of those 16 required courses for the A through G. So are teachers equipped? Yes, they do have the ability to meet the needs of the students, but we definitely have an issue. Are students checking out on the second part of your question? There is some of that, especially right now, because there is, if they do get a grade that is not passing, with UC that's a C or better, then it's sometimes difficult to convince them to retake the class because they've already passed it. They're on track to graduate, so they don't necessarily need it for graduation. And there's always that conversation. As a high school principal, we had that conversation constantly. There's places where there's pockets of success. You follow? AVID programs are great at this. They're able to get those students focused, but those are by choice, right? Those students choose and elect to have those programs, and they commit at the beginning, typically in 7th grade, and say, I'm going to college. So you bring up counselors. We did, as you know, we've lowered the counseling ratio quite a bit recently. So we do have more input, counselors having more time with students. However, this won't change in 1 year. So I believe we're going to start to see this come back. But even this year's been tough on this. Grades are low. Student grades are low. The principals are reporting this. Students are struggling to stay motivated. And so we definitely have that as an issue. But we have the ability to either give them the class again, give them different opportunities to retake. Expanding summer school has helped immensely. And so, this is not purely an Apple Valley problem. Like as you look across regionally, this is a difficult number to move, but you're right, it must move. The requirement for students to fill out the FAFSA will start to help that, I think, because they'll start to think about college a little bit more. So as you know, the current junior class is required by the end of their year next year to either opt out or to fill out the FAFSA. And so we'll be helping them do that.
Okay. My final question is on Cte Pathway. Those students who are not college ready and they want to learn the tools about being an electrician, or they want to know how to be a plumber, or they want to learn how to be a carpenter. Those programs are not technically offered at both high schools at the same level, right?
Correct.
So if a student wants to do, let's say, wood shop. When I was a teacher in Apple Valley Junior High, this campus here, we had wood shop. I don't know where else they offer those, but a child who wants to do that has already been squeezed out by virtue of where their school location is. Okay, So at some point, as a district, we need to start looking at, okay, this child wants to do FFA, but he is, or whatever it is, animal thing, but he's at Granite Hills. How do we make sure that he can get that being a student at Granite Hills? We are squeezing kids away out of a program because of location, because of geography. So as a district, we need to start looking at how do we make sure that what is here is also here for that student so that they can all be successful at the same time. I speak on behalf of all the children. My children no longer go to this school or district, but my children were also squeezed out when they were here. And that's 20-something years ago. And I go with that as my marker. I make sure that no other person's child gets squeezed out. So we need to be able to find ways to bring all kids to the table. That's my question. Find a way to get it.
Okay, let me try. I had woodshop at this school. I remember it. I was a student here,
Yep.
and I think I got in trouble because of a sander. But we currently do not replicate every CTE program at every site. That's true. However, we do allow transfers for students who indicate that they want a program that's not offered at their school of residence. So we just went through the transfer window, just closed. Students wanted to go to Granite Hills High School because there's a program there they felt better matched their needs. We allow them to go.
Okay.
Students want to go to AVUSD High School. Now, if they want to go to AVUSD High School because they want to do a program that exists at both schools, that's not a reason to transfer. But if they do, if there's room in the program and they have the need, and this year we were able to approve all transfers for unique programs. So it doesn't answer every question that you ask, but it does allow for that opportunity because you're right. Certain things that really kind of meet the needs of certain students. Some of the programs we have are not easy to replicate everywhere just because of the cost of infrastructure. FFA is a good example. The agriculture program kind of fits where it fits, you know. But same goes with Granite Hills, the SCADA program, the mechatronics, the dance part of the Great Academy, and some of the other parts are great. They're not easy to replicate everywhere. And so we do have some uniqueness, but we do allow movement.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Pat. All right, moving on to public comments. Kylie, do we have any requests to speak cards?
We do. We have a total of 3.
Okay. Just reminding everyone that we limit it to 3 minutes to speak on, and if there's more, 20 minutes per topic. And so with that, first up is June.
Sorry, I'm short. Hopefully I can see. I forgot my glasses. Okay, where's the time? Okay.
Oh, give me a
Start.
second. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was up. Give me a second. Try again here. There you go.
Okay. The science is in and has been for a year now. Connecticut, Israel, Delaware, Florida, etc. And just recently, the exhaustive Johns Hopkins study on all the COVID measures. These masks are harming our kids. This week, Surgeon General is now announcing that our kids are in a mental health crisis. There are only 14 states in the U.S. that mask their students. Out of those 14, I had 4 down, but 1 more dropped today, Nevada. 4 out of them, all Democratic states, are now dropping their student mask mandates and going against Biden's policies. The CDC just a couple of days ago reinstated its guidance on masking our kids, continuing to play politics and ignore the science. It took the CDC 1 year before they told us it was safe to be outside without a mask, even though they knew it was safe. When they announced it was safe, I remember Fauci saying, "Yeah, we've known that for a long time." But we all pretty much knew that it was safe because they allowed the Black Lives Matter protests and lots of doctors signed off saying it was safe. I remember that time pulling up to the school and seeing our tennis players outside in triple degree weather, 20 plus feet away from anyone practicing their tennis and being masked up. Every time I saw that, I was infuriated and wanted to call the cops to report child abuse because that's what it was. But you know, we let it happen. Well, we aren't going to wait another year for the CDC to catch up to the science or Newsom, a governor who doesn't follow his own rules on masking, AKA Super Bowl, and I can AKA quite a few other things in there too, but makes our kids masked up for 7 hours a day. Our kids have suffered enough. They have been given the most restrictive COVID measures while being the least vulnerable population for this disease. Because the people in power are not standing up for our kids are now going to start standing up for themselves, along with their parents, taking back their rights, taking off their masks, and showing their smiles. I will be sending all of you a copy of their student legal rights. For those students who choose to unmask, in summary, forcible removal of them from the classroom violates California law. You cannot force them into independent study, and the state of emergency powers do not allow children to be excluded from school for refusing to wear a mask. All students should be free from all forms of harassment and discrimination and retaliation. If any teacher, administrator, or district employee harasses, mistreats, abuses, or does anything illegal to any of these students who choose to unmask, the Let Them Breathe lawyers will be notified and legal action may be taken. We're done. Thank you.
Thank you, June. Next up is it Nikolai? Nikolai?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, yeah. Dear God, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be here and speak tonight because our freedoms come from you, Lord. I just want to pray for the school board members and the cabinet and the lawyers, Lord, that are in charge of these children for this district, Lord, that you just give them the courage to do what's right, not what's easy. And Lord, just be with all the children of this district, Lord, and all the surrounding districts, that you just guide them and just be with them in all these times right now, especially with all this just darkness going around. And again, we just thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. Name's Nikolai Boroff, teacher at Asbury High School. I live down the street, though. I got 2 boys, twins, kindergartner age now. So talking, I just wanted to encourage, mine's more of a comment for my sister. She lives up north. She's a school board member herself. Tonight, she's in closed session right now, and they'll be passing a resolution. And I just wanted to encourage you guys and ladies, do the same thing here as soon as you can. I'm just going to pull it up and just read the is. You know, the whereas, whole bunch of them. But I wanted to say, boy, where'd I go? Whereas the Roseville Joint Unified School District, regardless of vaccination status, personnel, and parent choice with respect to whether or not children, staff, and teachers should wear face mask coverings when at school commencing when the state indoor mask mandating is lifted February 15th. So starting February 15th, they believe they have 4 votes tonight that they are actively next Monday is 100% choice. All the mask mandates are gone. So I just wanted to encourage you that people are fighting other districts. There's 1,000 of them. So I just ask you to reach out. She's willing to work there with Reopen California and all that it is possible. You just got to put your neck out on the line a little bit. She's a single mom of 3 kids. The lawyers told her, hey, you're looking at 6 months of jail, $1,000 fine, you know, those little things there. And the school board said, come and get us. So I just want to give you that encouragement there a little bit and hope that that you get the courage there for choice. And whereas, again, they're going to provide N95s. They're not getting rid of it. They're going to be right there in every classroom available to every student who wants one. And I just encourage you to do the same as well. Remember, there's the letter of the law and there's the spirit of the law there too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Nikolai, what district was that you mentioned? You were
Roseville Joint
Roseville?
High School District.
Okay, thank you. Hector Garcia.
Great. Thank you very much for letting us speak today. Just want to thank you very much for all the information that was disseminated, and continue to keep doing that for our community so we know what's going on in our schools. Thank you for the ones that shared about the masking. I agree with that too. It should be total choice. But I wanted to just touch on something about the building projects that was, as you were speaking, is this that the Bass Stadium, when you do think about building a new stadium, to give a facelift to an iconic place that not only the high desert knows, but the entire state of California knows. Look at football games, social activities that happen in our community that so much of Apple Valley High School participates into to further our community, to help out in different ways. And it's such a beautiful stadium, but it does need a facelift. With that, all-weather track, the football field, all of those different things. So don't let it go off to the wayside, because so many people cherish that place. Our community does, and so does anyone in the state of California dealing with anything that has to do with that stadium, because they all know it. I was a high school football player, wrestler, all of these different places back in the 90s, and even then it was just known about Apple Valley High School due to the iconic place of what it is. So let's continue to keep that legacy alive. When you think about rebuilding or building new things, let's continue on our legacy up in the high desert. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. All right, is that it, Kylie, on the cards? Okay. Thank you, everyone who spoke tonight, this evening. Moving on right along here, superintendent comments. Renee?
I absolutely agree that we're at a point in this pandemic that there needs to be a change to the guidance. I monitor it on a daily basis. I looked today before I walked into the room. There's signals that there's going to be a change, but I fear that some of the change is going to have to do with vaccination. And so I want to just publicly state that one of the next fights has to do with the statement that there's across the state, people are making recommendations about the number of people that have to be vaccinated within a system in order to remove the masks. And I don't believe that that's a necessity. As a school district, we get to see our own data. Most districts hired people to do that. We track our own. And so I told the board president that I would update the board regarding our COVID numbers having to do with staff, because that's the most consistent that I can give as data sets. When we returned from the winter break, the first week we were back, we had over 100 positive staff cases in a system where we have approximately 1,700 full-time employees. That's a staggering number. It was almost the same. It was about half of what we had the first semester. The surge has come and gone in Apple Valley School District. And we know that because our current numbers are a sixth of that in a week's time, a month later. So we know that we have staff on campus. We have campuses that have not had to swap substitutes this week. And so we are pushing for people to come look at our own data. Come see what we have, not what others are doing. And so as we move forward, if you start seeing signals that they're going to require, because the vaccination thing is still on the table for the state. And as I said at a meeting earlier, I don't believe it should be a mandate. It is a choice. It doesn't change the outcome. As we've seen with the Omicron, vaccination status doesn't change who gets it. So I encourage people to continue to push on this topic. But on top of that, we have to have a change in order to not be out of compliance with OSHA, because we are an employer. So I have to give the facts out, and I understand the desire to have it end. I would like it to end as well. In the district in the past month, there's some things that I'd like to highlight for the board. Feed America is a network of the nation's largest domestic hunger relief organization, working to connect people, food, and end hunger. Apple Valley Unified School District's Family Center applied as, you're aware we have a food pantry, but we applied to be a distribution center. This included a visit from the company as well as an inspection. We are now the only school district in the region that have been approved and are a distribution center for Feed America. In our region, this means 19 cents per pound for any food product that we purchase from them in order to provide to our families. We serve families every Friday through volunteerism. Families that are utilizing the food bank are also working in the food bank. We will be working on a Golden Bell application for CSBA next year. Having to do with this, it is replicable across the state. It just needs somebody to have energy behind it. So I wanted to update on that. Black History Month is going strong within the district, and Ms. Williams, who got up in front of the board at a recent board meeting, met with Mrs. Smith in the Educational Services Department, looked at what Mrs. Smith was doing for lessons that she was providing to school sites as samples and materials, and added some things along the way. It is also School Counselor Week. Ella mentioned it, that the counselors are on top of it, getting all of the seniors ready for graduation. We also added Priscilla Avia this week at Sitting Bull. You hired her at the board meeting a month ago, and she was released and able to start at Sitting Bull on Monday. Tuesday. Monday was a holiday, Tuesday. I was out there with her yesterday in front as she was greeting kids, and she said she was exhausted the night before because it's a huge campus, but she was eager to get to know every staff member and student. We also received CTE Round 7 funding, over $700,000 for career technical education for our district. That's part of the consortium, but the $700,000 is specifically allocated to Apple Valley Unified School District, equipment, student support, all kinds of things we can utilize for that funding. And then Pat did mention that we did have dozens of home visits this past week, and we will continue to do those home visits. So you'll see those on the CWA report. It is a variety of things. Kids that aren't engaged on independent study, kids that have multiple attendance issues, and the goal is to get them back and connected. We also are looking at home addresses and validating the addresses people are utilizing, because we know that there's a lot of people when we start doing searches that don't actually live where they indicate they do, so that they can attend one of the schools within the district that they desire. School start times was mentioned as well. As a reminder, the only thing that removes a school start time from changing in this district is a rural designation. I don't know of a location in the high desert, other than some areas in Victorville, that would not be considered rural in the concept of student walk distances, lack of sidewalks, street lights, because it's dark for them when they're starting school. But I went to the town of Apple Valley's council meeting on Tuesday night, and I asked for support for a resolution or a letter of support indicating that our community is considered rural, that we have by vote a maximum of 2 homes per acre, and they are willing to support this endeavor. I don't know that it'll work at the state level, but I'm willing to put that together, as well as a resolution that I will bring to the March board meeting, indicating that we are designating ourselves as a district rural as well. And we will send those on up, and hopefully not have to change start times, because overwhelmingly our families do not want to have that change. It is a change to every school site within the system. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Board member comments, Maria.
I'm going to start by thanking the student speakers today. They gave us a snapshot of the great things that are happening at their schools. And I truly appreciate the courage that they present when they are coming to present to us. I don't see any nerves with the students. Thank you to all of the schools that are making such huge progress in terms of making a school a home for those children for 7 hours and 11 minutes. Regarding the mask mandate, we'll just wait and see what happens on February 15th. But the most important thing is that we need to keep in mind that because, like the superintendent said, we are also an employing agency. and we follow the guidelines of the other agency, not just what the governor says. In terms of what the governor says, our goal is to keep our children safe. And so whatever happens, we are going to keep our children as number one priority when it comes to that. So let's see what happens after February 15th, and then we'll go from there. I thank you so much for coming out today and sharing your positions.
Chris?
I'll keep it short tonight. I just want to give a shout out and congratulations to Apple Valley senior Jacob Kleinsmith. He was announced yesterday that he won the Mojave Water Agency's WaterWise essay contest. So congratulations to him and to our entire district. Keep going. You guys are doing some fantastic things out at every one of our school sites, and keep it up. Thank you.
Dennis?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for former students that are here tonight as concerned parents. This is a great form of democracy. And we're really hurting our kids here in California. They're going to write books about this 5 years from now. And they keep moving the goalpost. The guidelines are a joke. I mean, it's just terrible what's happening. And hopefully we'll get out of this. If we were doing this stuff, making kids run up and down a basketball court with masks on, that's something you do in a prison camp. I mean, it's ridiculous. But anyway, hopefully we'll get through it. But believe me, we've done some harm.
We had this meeting tonight, so there's a lot of you that follow the times of the board meeting. So from now on, we're going to be meeting at 5 p.m. here, and then the regular meeting starts at 6 for those that come to these meetings regularly. We just changed it around tonight because we had some scheduling issues with some of the board members. So, and we're going to continue to do them in person throughout that. This issue with the time change, this is going to be very disruptive to the district on many, many fronts. This is going to be just as bad as this masking, or worse, because what's going to happen is, such as elementary schools, some of them start at 9 p.m. now. And because of the time change, because of the buses and the routes we have to do, that may start at 7. So that's going to really affect the after-school programs that the town of Apple Valley even has at our districts or our different schools, because when it goes past a certain hour, there has to be certain insurances, and it's just a mess. So really, we need to get the word out and put pressure that this is a rural area. We're 73 square miles. 73 square miles. I mean, the district goes all the way out Mill Pass Road, way up into the highlands as well. You know, if that's not rural, I don't know what is. So it is. And we have to really beat the drum on this, and we're going to, as a board, pass more resolutions and hammer it away that this is a rural area. This cannot stand. This is going to be very disruptive. So with that, again, thank you, for showing up again. I know, June, you're like the heavy hitter with this. It's okay. I get messages. I get Facebook posts. I got some tonight. Somebody posted a picture from June. Dennis and Rick aren't wearing a mask the night at the meeting, so it gets out there quick. But that's just how we feel. So
I'm holding my breath though.
we're holding our breath. So we're okay. So, okay. So, I got a text from my wife. Where's your mask at, Rick? I said, well, anyway. So, well, thank you. We're you're preaching to the choir here. Whether it's the superintendent or the board members or whatever. We're all on the same page here. We're really trying to do what's right in Apple Valley. So I know. With that, we'll move on to public hearing. We have none at this meeting. Special meetings, none. So we have discussion items. Approve the recommendation of administrative hearing chairperson effective immediately on expulsion case 15, 2021-22. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
From Dennis and a second by Maria. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none.
Just to clarify.
This is not the one with the change. This is the original one, yeah. So all in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, that'll be the order. Now, expulsion case 16, 2021, 22. So we did in closed session amend it to the following. So on 16, 2021, 22, that the student be expelled from the Alpha Valley Unified School District for the remainder of the current year. Is there any discussion on that before we vote on that?
Need a motion.
Right. So do we have a motion to approve that?
I'll
Motion,
second it.
motion by Maria, second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition to the motion? That'll be the order. Okay, item 2, approve the certificated and classified personal actions as listed.
So moved.
So we have 1, 2, 3, so we're on 2. So we have a motion by Chris, second by Farah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It'll be the order. Item 3, approve requested leave as noted. Motion
So moved.
by
Second.
Nunez, second by Bender. Any opposition to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that'll be the order. 4, approve and read out the existing trustee area map. Do we even go over this? Or do we?
It was an agenda item.
It was an agenda item, and it's just that,
Right, okay.
it's just if you have questions.
Is there any
um,
discussion on that item?
No, kept it all the same.
Okay,
I move that we approve and Maria got the existing trustee area map.
excuse me?
She moved.
Oh, okay, okay,
I'll second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that'll be the order. Okay, item 5, consider the cell tower ground lease agreement with APC Towers LLC. I'm going to make a motion that we deny the request to build on the property. Okay, so motion by Raleigh, second by Bender. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none. Is there any, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that'll be the order. Okay. 6, acknowledge receipt and review of 2021 audit report as prepared by Nigro and Nigro PC. We have a presentation by Matt Schulenberg on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley. Let me get the presentation up on the screen. Great, thank you. You all have a bound copy of the audit at your space. That is for you to take with you this evening if you choose to do so. If you leave it at your seat, I will be happy to collect those and take those back. First off, this is an audit of our financial situation from last school year, the audit as of June 30, 2021. I'd like to acknowledge right off the first, there was a slight clerical error on page 59 in the supplementary information section. It incorrectly listed the term of expiration for Mr. Raleigh and Mr. Bender. The correct term expirations are listed there, and you will notice when you turn to page 59 in your copy of the audit, a corrected page has been inserted in your audit report. There is no material effect to the audit based on that. It is merely supplementary information to the audit. So what is an audit? This, of course, is the independent auditor expressing an opinion on our financial statements, determining compliance with laws and regulations, particularly in federal and state program. You'll notice page 1 and 2, that's the independent auditor's report. It's basically a narrative, and we have a clean opinion from the auditor in terms of our financial statements. The management discussion on page 3 through 9 is really a readable analysis of the district's financial activities. I will point you to the fund balance comparison, which is table A3 on page 6, is a point to look at if you're perusing through the audit anytime. And again, the auditor does go through a summary of certain factors affecting the future. They talk about the governor's budget proposals, some of the different things he's proposed, the categorical programs, and how they might affect us in the future in that particular analysis. The government-wide financial statements are contained on the following 41 pages, page 10 through 51. Really reports the financial position and activity of the district, our statement of our net position. And net position is really something that's unique to a public agency. It's calculated much different than the net position of a private business. So you see our net position is a negative 11.9 million. That's nothing to worry about. It's the way we have to book certain financial transactions. That does not concern the auditor at all in terms of that type of financial position for a school district. You will see on page 14, that's our audited fund activity in each of our operating funds. Fund 01 being our general fund, where the majority of our programs, where we receive the majority of our revenue and operate the majority of our programs. There are notes in that section, page 16 through 51, and that's a narrative explaining the financials. So that's some great reading if you go through that. It digs into a little more of the detail of what the financial statements mean for the school district. The supplementary information contained on page 52 to 65, that just lists some of the items that you can take a look at there. The part that I always jump to when we receive the audit is the findings and questions cost. This is the important part of the audit, if there's going to be any findings. I'm happy to say in our financial statements and our federal awards, we had no findings in any of those programs. However, I hate to report that we did have some findings in our state awards, mainly in our CalPADS and duplicated pupil count. When we transitioned to the CEP meal program several years ago, that's the community eligibility provision, which enables us to feed all of our students for free. We started with some of our schools and have since expanded that program to all of our schools. And by implementing that program to support our students and their families in terms of meal access at our schools, we lost an important piece of information gathering, mainly the federal free and reduced meal application to determine free and reduced status for our students. The free and reduced status for our students is an important part of our local control funding formula calculation. That establishes what's called our unduplicated pupil percentage, or it's a major part of our unduplicated pupil percentage. So we implemented what's called an alternative income form to gather that data. And we've surveyed our families by using paper forms a couple years ago in the fall, which facilitated about 13,000 paper surveys in my office that were processed and entered into our student information system. And we also have an online data verification where the families have to verify their address and their phone number at the beginning of the school year, and an income survey is electronically part of that. And we had some issues with the records being overwritten and in the timing of those two different activities. So unfortunately, we had some students identified incorrectly in our student information system, which will result in the apportionment loss of about $181,000. This error has already been fixed by the Director of Fiscal Services, working jointly with our IT department and our Ed Services department, mapping out the timelines of when we will collect this information in the future and when we will not need to collect this information in the future, and establishing what's called a base year in our data collection process. So unfortunately, this did pop up this last year, and from what our auditor has told us, this is not an uncommon problem throughout the state of California with districts that have implemented the CEP. Our second finding has no fiscal impact, but they had to report that our California Clean Energy Program report was filed late. We did hire a third-party vendor to facilitate this entire process for us, and unfortunately, they did not meet the deadline, but no fiscal impact on that finding. And that's my quick presentation. Again, you do have the copy. Take that with you if you'd like. If not, leave it at your station, and I will gather those up at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need a motion to accept that
Right.
report, Mr. Raleigh?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to call for is there a motion to approve the audit from Nigro and Nigro? Okay. We have motion Bender, second Maria.
Motion by Nunez.
No.
Was it independent?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that'll be the order. All right. Ratify the contract documents, district-wide HVAC project Phase 1. Any, there's no presentation on this. Is there any discussion? Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Nunez,
Second.
second by Bender. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? That'll be the motion. That'll be the order. Okay, consent. It is recommended the Board of Trustees consider approving a number of agenda items on consent. So what we have tonight is 1 through 27. Is there anybody that needs to pull any items to discuss? If not, then I need a motion to approve. Okay, motion by Maria, second Bender. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, that'll be the order. So we'll approve 1 through 27. Okay, so we need to go back into closed session because we didn't finish up. So now's the time to go back and bring our binders back there with us. And then,
President,
yeah,
I just want to make sure the audience knows there will be no readouts from second closed session. So if there were readouts, that would impact the community, so that what Mr. Bender said is accurate. There's no need to stay.
all right. So we'll see everybody next meeting. Thank you. So we need a motion to go back into closed session.
That's at the end. At the end.
We have a motion to go back?
So moved.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that'll be the order.
All right.
Okay, we're back from closed session, so we'll call the regular meeting back to order at 6:36. And there's nothing to report from closed session. Is there any future items that anybody wants to place on the future agendas? No? Okay. Real quick, superintendent comments.
Masters of Governance is now available by CSBA. They just posted it yesterday. It's virtual. It's either Friday and Saturday, the 18th and 19th of February, or a March date that's consecutive. So if any, second and third, thank you, Kylie. So if any of the board members are interested, we'll get you signed up, and it is virtual, so you can do it from wherever you are. But it is a 2-day commitment for the certificate. So let Kylie know. And then Coast to Coast, CSBA is an advocacy having to do with federal. And so that happens in April 25th through 27th. Are there any board members that are interested in attending if there are still spots? Ms. Okpara?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm interested, but I have to see if I can be available.
Okay, so we'll see if we can book a spot, and then if we can back out if we need to. So
What to what?
April 25th through the 27th.
If there's any deposit needed from me or anything like that, don't make the deposit.
Right, got it. Okay, we'll look at that.
Thank you.
And then a final, we appreciate Mr. Schullenberg spending his birthday with us today. And since there's not an audience, I can say that, but it is streaming, so happy birthday, Mr.
Happy
Schullenberg.
birthday!
We won't ask how old he is.
He's still younger than me.
Okay. Is there any other comments from board members?
No, thank you.
Okay. So basically, we're going to adjourn, and our next meeting before we adjourn is March 3rd at 5 PM here at this conference room A. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
So any,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? That'll be the order. We're adjourned.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.